This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
Opinions expressed are those of the show host, not WPSL or Port St. Lucie broadcasters. Any reproduction or reuse of this program without written consent of WPSL is strictly prohibited. Now it's time for Treasure Coast Justice with Steve Hoskins and Taylor Hoskins. Good morning, folks.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Greg. Glad to be here this morning to kick off this radio show. So we're going to see where this leads us this morning.
Okay. So what's on tap? I noticed I got something on your email of your newsletter. You got tons of stuff going on.
Well, I thought it would be a good idea to show up with an agenda rather than shoot from the hip. And I thought today we could talk about car insurance. That's always a popular topic. I've been an injury lawyer on the Treasure Coast now for almost 40 years, and my daughter Taylor's been working with me now going on 5 years. And we deal constantly with car insurance, and I found that very few of us really know what we have in our car policy until we're trying to figure it out after an accident, and a lot of times that's too late. So we're going to talk about that this morning. I have a segment on tips on what you should do if you've been involved in an accident, because in our line of work, nobody ever leaves home in the morning expecting to need help from an injury lawyer. And if misfortune should strike, it's good to think about what you might do. And so we're going to talk about that this morning. An interesting segment, love bugs. I took a trip to Okeechobee yesterday. I have not seen love bugs this bad in 40 years. And I thought we could have a little discussion about love bugs and what's the best way to deal with those. And if you're planning on traveling into Central Florida anytime this week, you are going to be dealing with love bugs. We're going to talk about the WPSL Christmas kids and the long relationship our firm has had with the Christmas kids, and underscore that it's not just Christmas anymore with the Christmas kids. And we're going to talk about some of our future show ideas. So that's what we have on tap today.
Wow. Sounds like a busy agenda. We need to get going here, huh?
All right. Where do you want to start?
You name it.
Well, I guess we can talk a little bit about car insurance. And I guess if anybody wants to comment or has a question on what we're talking about, they can call in on 340-1590, 340-1590. And when we deal with car insurance, a lot of people just don't understand car insurance in Florida. And if you've lived in another state, you're going to quickly find that insurance in Florida is like no other insurance you'll find anywhere in the United States. And back in 1971, Florida passed what's called the NoFault Act, which essentially required everyone to carry $10,000 in PIP and $10,000 in property damage. And a lot of people are surprised that in Florida, there's no requirement that people have bodily injury coverage under their policy. And we constantly talk to people in our office who say, you mean this accident wasn't my fault? I've got a pile of bills, I'm hurt, and these people over here that caused this don't have to carry any insurance to cover those bills? And I have to tell them, yes, except for property damage. They have to carry $10,000 to fix your car, and that's not even enough anymore.
That's true.
Yeah. And
what's PIP?
It's called Personal Injury Protection. And this is a good point to get Taylor involved in this. She works in our firm and deals with a lot of the PIP issues. Why don't you tell folks what PIP coverage is?
So your personal injury protection is a type of coverage on your own insurance policy. you have to carry it, $10,000 in personal injury protection. It only protects you. So when you've been involved in an accident, the first part of your medical bills are paid by your PIP coverage. And
Okay.
PIP pays 80% of the medical expenses up to $10,000, or your wage loss, it'll pay 60% of your wage loss up to $10,000 as well.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, but it's cooked after $10,000.
But that's it.
And I can tell you this. When I started in 1980, many times you had a case, you still had PIP coverage left after your case was resolved. We're finding many times now that PIP coverage is gone after an emergency room visit. It's not uncommon to see an emergency room bill for $5,000, $10,000, or $15,000.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You know, and that's actually one of my tips I wanted to share with folks that might be listening out there. If you're in an accident, people kind of think, well, I need to go down to the emergency room and get myself checked out. Well, first off, we hear a lot of complaints that you tend to sit at the emergency room a long time. They check you over. Maybe you get some x-rays and a CT scan, and you get a nice bill many times for over $10,000. And you're told, you know, you need to go get some follow-up care and treatment somewhere, and there's no coverage left to do that. So my first tip would be that if you've been in an accident and you're not dealing with a life-threatening injury, you might want to consider getting yourself checked out at a walk-in clinic as opposed to the emergency room, and you may find that your bill was only about $1,000 or maybe less as opposed to $10,000.
But is there like x-ray equipment and stuff like that, the same caliber as it would be in a hospital?
Most walk-in clinics have sophisticated equipment, and if they don't, they'll recommend that you go to the hospital, or they can refer you to a radiology practice that takes x-rays. So it's just a tip. If you don't have health insurance in today's world, you can burn up $10,000 in PIP right off the bat before you even find out what you're dealing with. So in today's world, there's actually talk about abolishing PIP here in Florida and going with mandatory bodily injury protection, but that hasn't happened yet. So that is a problem, that when you're in an accident, you only have $10,000 in PIP benefits in Florida.
So where will this new law take us then?
Well, that's a good question. There was a proposal being discussed in the legislature within the last couple of years that would require drivers to carry $25,000 in bodily injury coverage, which means that as a minimum, okay, which means if you cause an accident, you have $25,000 that would be available to apply to the claim of somebody who's injured. And in today's world, having $25,000 in benefits available is more realistic than having $10,000 in PIP. And this whole thing with NoFault and PIP, that was very much in vogue back in 1971, and a lot of states enacted NoFault laws. And the last statistics I saw on that, I think there are only 5 states left that have a no-fault system, and Florida is one of those 5 states.
Great. Okay.
So, but one of the things that we wanted to talk about today, if you're listening out there, is looking at your policy and figuring out what type of coverage you have. And if you look under your policy, it's not just one thing. Many auto policies have several different types of coverage, but there are a couple of coverages that we wanted to share with people to make sure that you've considered those as part of your auto policy, because quite frequently we see people that are left upside down after an accident without any recourse on getting their bills paid. So those two coverages would be uninsured motorist coverage, and the other is if you have a finance vehicle or a new vehicle, you probably want to seriously consider getting what's called some form of gap insurance. And first, on the uninsured motorist coverage, that is coverage that you can buy for you and your family that will provide coverage to you in case you are hit by one of these drivers out there that either has very little or no insurance. And I saw a statistic within the last few years that here in St. Lucie County, it ranges between 1 in 3 to 1 in 2 drivers in St. Lucie County that are driving around either underinsured or not insured at all. And that's a crisis. And if you're driving around in St. Lucie County and hit by one of these drivers, you could be out of luck unless you have uninsured motorist coverage. So you should check your policy to make sure that you have uninsured motorist coverage, and if you don't, I would recommend that you call your insurance agent and discuss that, because that's one of the few coverages under the policy where you're buying protection for yourself. Most of the coverages are protecting you from claims of other drivers, but uninsured motorist coverage, you're really making an investment in yourself. And I say this over and over. Nobody left home this morning and expecting to be in an accident, but you never know when misfortune can strike, and it's better to be prepared than to try to figure out what you have after the fact.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
And you know, how many times do you look at your insurance policy? You know, that's one of those things. All right, just, you know, throw it in the drawer. But yeah, it's a good idea. Good idea.
Yeah. We have some other things to talk about, but this might be a good time to shift and talk about the WPSL Christmas Kids. That is an organization that our firm has been involved with for a long time, and I know Carol Wyatt is here with us this morning, and she's deeply involved with that, as you are too, Greg. But our firm formed a relationship with WPSL and the Christmas Kids over 20 years ago, and it's
25.
Such well, who's counting? Okay, but I tell you, out of the many things over the years our firm has supported here in St. Lucie County, this is just one of the best organizations that we have ever worked with and had the pleasure to support, and you go home feeling like the time and the effort and the money that's contributed to this organization touches so many people here locally. And I thought with our first show, since we've had such a great relationship, I'd like to stop and talk about that for a minute. And I've asked Taylor to talk to us a minute about the Christmas Kids and what it does, and the fact it's so much more than just Christmas.
Sure. We're here with Carol, who is like the board chair of the WPSL Christmas Kids. Can you take a minute and just explain to everyone what the WPSL Christmas Kids does in St. Lucie County?
Well, they started out back in 1947 when there was only one radio station on the Treasure Coast, and that was 1400. The wonderful Indian River area is what WIRA stood for. A lot of people called it the WIRA Christmas Kids. But it was a lady who came in and talked about her daughter. She was very ill at the holidays and made an appeal. The station joined, making an appeal for the child for toys at the holidays. And the audience responded, and then it grew from there. Each year, I think it expanded, and there were civic groups that helped distribute the toys. I think the Kiwanis group was involved very early in distributing the toys around in the Fort Pierce Police Department. And it just grew, and it became kind of a focal point of the community. It became an independent organization, independent from the radio station, but still associated and doing shows as you have hosted as a way of fundraising for the Christmas kids. We expanded maybe about 15, 20 years ago into summer recreation programs. And that is something that we're trying to support now. And then this last year, we are kind of dividing. We've had toys for years, and that's been the focus of the Christmas kids. We're expanding a little bit beyond that, where we'll include some school clothing for children, and particularly of extreme homeless situations.
I've heard that's a huge problem in St. Lucie County, so that's a great thing that the Christmas kids are starting to get into now. As part of our involvement, the Hoskins, Turco, Lloyd, and Lloyd involvement with the Christmas kids, we always host a radio show during Christmas time for a toy drive. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, that is what the Christmas kids have been involved in since 1947. And in the recent years, we kind of settled at 1,000 children selected or screened by St. Lucie County Community Services. And we would go out. We jokingly have the world-class shoppers who go out and select the 3 new toys each. And there are stories of 22, 25, 30 carts in a store. We do all of our shopping in St. Lucie County. We raise our money in St. Lucie County. We do we spend it in St. Lucie County. And we have volunteers who come in and help us pack a bag for each family. So that there'll be, and they're age-appropriate toys, for the 3-year-old girl, 7-year-old boy. We try to do games, we try to do athletic equipment, as well as the, cars and dolls and that kind of thing. So it's something that we all enjoy. It's kind of a small core of very dedicated people, but it expands of volunteers who help us pack the bags and distribute the bags. It's something we just enjoy, as well as all the businesses who help us raise money for the Christmas holiday drive. And certainly you have hosted some of the most colorful programs where we've come down to just in front of your office, and you have not only your staff involved, but some of the people you do business with along 2nd Street.
I just got the schedule for what we have coming up, and the 2 shows, we're actually going to do one in Fort Pierce, and we're going to do one in Port St. Lucie this year. And I see on Friday, November 22nd, we're going to do what Greg has called our 2nd Street Shakedown at our
Yes.
Fort Pierce office. And I need to find a new music group to participate with us. When we first started years ago, Taylor was in the FK Sweet Sounds, and they showed up and performed for many, many years. And right now we've lost our music sponsor. So
Well,
but we'll get somebody new. But okay. We're going to shake down 2nd Street for you this year. And then on Monday,
so judges and fellow attorneys, beware.
We shake them down. We
Yes, you do.
And then on Monday, December 9, we're doing a show in Port St. Lucie. I don't know where we'll wind up doing that, but we'll take the shake down to Port St. Lucie this year and see if we can shake some people down in Port St. Lucie and get some money for the Christmas kids. So
that would be great, and we certainly appreciate it. I mean, because we've always said that the Christmas kids reflect the generosity of St. Lucie County, and certainly that's part of what your firm has done.
So the next thing I want to take a quick second to talk about is the golf tournament benefiting the WPSL Christmas Kids, which is on June 1st, so that's coming up,
It's
correct?
coming up, yes.
Tell me about that. Tell me what it benefits and where the money fundraise goes for that.
Well, it's at Gator Trace, and it's Saturday, June 1st, and let's see. It is put together by Annie and Jack Crumbo. We don't golf. They do. They put together the golf tournament and pretty much single-handedly bring it together. We have always raised the money for the swimming program. And with what was raised from actually the tournament last year, we've already given the county almost a $7,000 check for 125 children to go through the water safety program this year. And that's not that they become champion swimmers, but that they learn the safety and the life-saving skills. Get to the side, roll over and float, should they fall in the water. And that's so important.
Right. Carol, you and I talked a little bit earlier about why this program is different from other programs for the children. Can you talk a little bit about that too?
Well, it's in the water. It's 6 weeks, and they actually, get the experience in. It's not a classroom. It's actually in the pool. So, I mean, it's a real situation if they should fall in a pool, or we have so much, water around here, canals. So I just feel it's really good experience.
Well, thank you. We always enjoy supporting the WPSL Christmas Kids, and we were planning on playing in the golf tournament next weekend, but we're both going to be out of town, so we'd still like to present you with a sponsorship check too, which I have today. So.
Well, thank you.
See, I didn't even know she was bringing it.
Annie will be very happy to hear that. Annie Crumbo.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for telling us about the WPSL Christmas Kids.
And thank you for your support all during the year. Thank you.
Yeah, and we might want to add, too, that the first show in Fort Pierce, you'll have your downtown Kiwanis gang talking about the parade.
Right. Yeah, we're going to talk about the Fort Pierce Christmas parade, the Main Street parade, that always takes place the first Sunday in December. And I was told this year that parade has reached the distinction of being the largest community Christmas parade in the state of Florida. It's kind of hard to believe, but I will say this, from where it started about 30 years ago, it has gotten to the point that the parade finishes before some people start. The first people are actually finished with the parade while there's still people waiting to participate. So it's
and
gotten
the bands,
rather large.
Yeah, you got marching bands, you've got everything.
Even Santa Claus.
Yes, even Santa Claus. Yeah.
So.
And of course, obviously, it would not be a parade without the equestrian groups, which you are very familiar with.
I'd give you a tip on that. You want to be in the parade in front of that equestrian group. Especially if you're marching.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the tip from Steve Hoskins.
So.
Oh, that's great.
And while we're on tips, I have another. I wanted to take a segment today and talk about love bugs. I'm not sure how. There are a lot of stories about how and when love bugs first arrived in Florida. I'm in my 60s now. As a kid, I don't remember love bugs. I remember mosquitoes. I remember no-see-ums or sandflies. I don't remember hearing or seeing love bugs until I was in college. But about 40 years ago, love bugs were prolific in Florida. And if you got out and drove on the turnpike through Central Florida, there were cars that actually overheated from love bugs.
Sure.
And there were some entrepreneurs that came up with love bug screens you could put on your car. If you remember, you could buy them at gas stations. They even sold them on the side of the road, and it was screening that had
put it in front of your radiator.
And you had to have it or your radiator would overheat. Well, the reason I brought this up, I have an office in Okeechobee as well as 3 offices here on the Treasure Coast. And yesterday, Taylor and I had the pleasure of going to Okeechobee, and it's been years since I've seen love bugs as bad as they were yesterday. And then that 35-mile trip to Okeechobee at about 10 a.m., the windshield was so bad you could barely see through the windshield. And we immediately pulled into a car wash over there and washed them off. My first question is, what's bringing the love bugs back? They were bad for a while. They got better. They haven't been all that bad. And I noticed the last few years they're getting worse again. I think WPSL needs to investigate that.
We'll have to talk to the folks at IFAS on that, the University of Florida. They probably have a good idea. Let's take a quick break, and we will be back. Give us a call, 340-1590. You're on with Steve and Taylor Hoskins.
A level playing field is important in any athletic game. If you've been injured in any type of accident, you will quickly find yourself fighting an uphill battle. I'm injury attorney Taylor Hoskins from Hoskins, Turco, Lloyd LOYD, and I'm a 2008 graduate of Lincoln Park Academy. At Hoskins, Turco, our injury team has leveled the playing field for thousands of Treasure Coast injury victims since 1980. For a free case review at any of our local Treasure Coast offices, call Hoskins, Turco, Lloyd LOYD today at 464-4600.
With offices in Port St. Lucie.
A bad call can change the outcome of any game. I'm injury attorney Steve Hoskins of Hoskins, Turco, Lloyd LOYD, and a proud graduate of Fort Pierce Central. If you've been injured in any type of accident, we're ready to go to work for you. We're available for a free case evaluation at any of our Treasure Coast offices. So make a good call on your injury case by calling me at 464-4600 to put our hometown injury team to work for you.
With offices in Fort Pierce.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
Welcome back to Treasure Coast Justice with Steve and Taylor Hoskins. And want to remind you, give us a call, 340-1590, 340-1590. And if you're listening anywhere around the world on Alexa or Google Home, you've got to put the area code 772 in there. Feel free. Give us a buzz. And, especially if you have an answer on the love bugs. Okay, guys, back to you.
Well, going back to the love bugs, if you're going to travel, if you have plans this week to travel somewhere in Florida or over the Memorial Day weekend, the love bugs are they're a lot worse outside the local area when you get over into the central part of the state. You probably want to take some precaution in driving, because I will tell you one thing. If you get love bugs on your windshield or on the paint of your car, you need to immediately come up with a plan to get those off, because otherwise they bake on the paint and they're very difficult to get off, and they actually damage your paint. So I've heard a lot of ideas and tips on dealing with love bugs. I was told years ago, spray Pam on the front of your car and they rinse off. Somebody told me the other day, if you take one of those dryer sheets and rub it on the love bugs when you get your destination, it'll just rinse off. I don't know if anybody has any other idea on how to deal with love bugs, but I will tell you again, the worst thing you can do is just park your car in the sun and let it bake. So the car wash in Okeechobee yesterday had about 3 inches of love bugs on the floor where folks had been rinsing them off. So
sure.
Taylor, you have any ideas on love bugs?
I don't. I can tell you that they do erode your paint, though. On one of my cars, the hood of it, I guess from years ago, of not washing them off, took the paint off the front of my car. So when you do get them on there, it's a good idea to immediately get them off.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Yeah, it's crazy to think about how something was virtually invented to get rid of mosquitoes, and now look what you have. It's just one of those things, science, right? Yeah. So what else you got going?
Well, we took a break from car insurance to talk about the WPSL Christmas Kids. Another coverage that I wanted to tell folks about is gap coverage.
Never heard of it.
Well, gap coverage is very important. And once again, Taylor, tell our listeners and Greg what gap coverage is and why it's important.
One of the biggest issues whenever we have clients come into the office is the property damage to their vehicle. And typically, if someone causes an accident, they're supposed to have $10,000 in property damage to cover the damage to your car if you're not at fault. So in instances where your car is worth more than 10, you're only going to get 10, and then you're kind of out of pocket for the remaining amount of your vehicle. And there's no Florida law that says that I can recover from someone over $10,000 in property damage if they don't have that insurance coverage. So what gap insurance does, if you lease a vehicle and you have to finance it, when a car is damaged, they'll only pay you for the fair market value. So if they total your vehicle, they're only going to pay you what it's worth. And everyone knows as soon as you drive off the lot, it depreciates a large amount. So gap insurance will cover the difference between what your car is actually worth and what you owe on the vehicle. Because if you owe more than it's worth, you're only going to get what the car is worth, and then you will be responsible for paying the difference in what you still owe on the vehicle. So gap insurance is very, very important. Another type of insurance that you can purchase for yourself, kind of like uninsured motorist coverage, is collision coverage. And that covers you, even if you're not at fault for the accident, you can go through your own company to get your property damage fixed. A lot of the times it's quicker to go through your own company. They tend to treat you more fair than the at-fault company, and it's a way to also have extra coverage in case the person who hit you for some reason doesn't have insurance coverage or only has $10,000 in property damage as well. So,
well, and the thing that I think about is what car, especially a newer car, they're all worth a lot more than $10,000.
And the $10,000 goes to cover the rental car as well. So if you're in an accident and you need your car repaired, say the repairs cost $5,000, then the remaining $5,000 would go to a rental. But if it costs $10,000 to repair, then the other company doesn't have to pay for your rental as well. So $10,000 really doesn't go that far in today's world.
So again, call your insurance agent and ask them about the gap coverage.
But if you're driving around in a relatively new vehicle, or you have your vehicle financed, there's a good chance that you have more tied up in your car than the value of your car. And quite frankly, if your vehicle's worth 20 and it's financed for 25,
sure,
you have a problem. If you're in an accident and your vehicle's totaled, they're going to want to pay you 20. And I tell people all the time, as lawyers, we have to work with the law. We can't make things up. And the law in Florida is quite simple. They owe you for the value of your car or the cost of repair, whichever really is less. Okay, and if it's a total, by law, they owe you the value of the car, and if it's 20 and you owe 25 on it, if you don't have gap coverage, that is a huge problem. So, look into gap coverage if you have a new car or if it's financed. And there's another area that is kind of an evolving area of the law. It's called diminished value. And we all know that if your vehicle is in an accident in today's world, you can't hide. It's difficult to hide that fact now. You can do a Carfax.
Oh, sure,
or,
yeah. I've seen the commercials.
And it'll show if a car has been damaged. And if your vehicle's been involved in an accident, it has diminished value. So when you go to trade it in, that dealer is going to know it was in an accident, and they're not going to pay you the same amount generally that they would pay if it hadn't been in an accident and damaged. That's called diminished value. And insurance companies do not come to you and talk about diminished value, but if you've got a nice newer car and it's been significantly damaged, you can seek what's called the diminished value on your vehicle. So there are lots of things out there that people just don't know about. And another thing I've learned in 40 years, and there are probably people listening that have been in the insurance world. Insurance companies have their own agenda and their own interests. And I don't care what commercials you watch on TV, none of them are watching over you like a guardian to take care of you. And the truth is, some are better than others. But at the end of the day, many times if you have a significant injury or a significant claim, it's good to get some legal advice on what you're doing before you try to resolve it yourself. And most people that do what I do offer a free initial consultation. And I tell people, take advantage of that. You know, talk to a couple of attorneys. And even if you think you want to handle the claim on your own, at least talk to someone and get some advice about what you're doing. Because if you don't deal in that world every day, it's easy to miss some of the things that you might otherwise be entitled to. So you might want to add to that, Taylor.
Another thing you can make with your property damage claim is a loss of use claim. If your car, and this only applies if your car is being repaired, is you can make a claim for the amount of time that you're without your vehicle. So if it takes a month to get your vehicle repaired, you can make a claim for that month that you're without your vehicle. That's one of the things that insurance companies don't tell you either. So if you want to handle your property damage claim on your own, if it's a total loss, look into a diminished value claim. If they have to repair it, look into a loss of use claim.
Okay, so the diminished value claim, that's something that your insurance company probably would never talk about, right?
No, I would be shocked if they talked to you about it. Shocked.
Okay.
Now, if you have an insurance agent that's also a personal friend, you know, maybe there's some scenarios out there where those things might be done for you, but as a general rule, you're not going to learn about those things. My brother was an insurance adjuster years ago, and he used to tell me when I was starting out as an injury attorney that he was told by his insurance company, you don't volunteer to people things that they're entitled to. And now if they come ask you about it, you be honest with them, but don't you help them out. And
Don't volunteer.
Yes, and don't volunteer anything to them. And he said they had actually, the company he worked for, they let some people terminated their employment because they were doing that. So the way the system is set up, most insurance companies are there to do what they have to do, and they're not there to give you legal advice about what you need to do.
Interesting. Wow. Okay, well, let's take another quick break. We will be back. Give us a call, 340-1590.
The Law Firm of Hoskins, Turco, Lloyd Lloyd is a proud supporter of home teams of the Treasure Coast because this is where our attorneys live and work. I'm Steve Hoskins, a 73 graduate of Fort Pierce Central and senior partner of the firm. I've represented thousands of Treasure Coast accident victims since 1980. If you've been injured in any type of accident, call me for a free case evaluation right here at home. Our home team is ready to work for you, so call me at 464-4600.
With offices in Port St. Lucie.
Having the home field is considered an advantage in football. I'm injury attorney Donna DeMarchi from Hoskins, Turco, Lloyd Lloyd, and I'm a graduate of Martin County High School. Our firm is a strong supporter of the home teams of the Treasure Coast. If you've had the misfortune of being injured in any type of accident, please remember that our firm has 4 local offices. Our hometown injury team is ready to work for you. So call us today, Hoskins, Turco, Lloyd Lloyd, at 464-4600 for a free case review.
With offices in Port St. Lucie. WPSL Storm Team 5 Treasure Coast weather is brought to you by Seacoast Air Conditioning, family owned and operated on the Treasure Coast since 1982. Online at seacoastair.com. Now with a look at our forecast, here's meteorologist Glenn Glazer.
This afternoon here on the Treasure Coast, partly to mostly sunny and breezy with winds out of the southeast, low chances for isolated rainfall, and high temperatures in the upper 80s. Tonight, mostly clear, low temperatures in the 60s and light southeasterly winds. And on Wednesday, mostly sunny with breezy to gusty winds out of the northeast, high temperatures in the upper 80s and very low chances for any rainfall. I'm WPTV Storm Team 5 meteorologist Glenn Glazer of WPSL 1590, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
At Seacoast Air Conditioning, they believe in 3 basic fundamentals. Answer the phone, show up on time, and fix the problem right the first time. Seacoast Air, family owned and operated since 1982, waiting to answer your call 24/7.
Comfort crisis, don't roast, call Seacoast.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
On your radio at AM 1590, on the web, plus Google Home and Alexa. Ask for us by name, WPSL Digital 1590.
Welcome back to Treasure Coast Justice with Steve and Taylor Hoskins.
Very good. Yeah, Greg, you were asking me some questions about our firm, and I am proud of our firm and the attorneys that we have working in our firm. We now have 4 staffed offices around the Treasure Coast. There's a lot of competition in our field of practice, but we believe in being community-oriented in the local area. We're not a firm from Orlando or South Florida that's coming to this area and trying to do business. Our attorneys live and work here on the Treasure Coast. The people that work for us live and work on the Treasure Coast. We spend our money here on the Treasure Coast, and our kids go to school here on the Treasure Coast.
And you're not just a referral service.
No, we actually have 4 staffed offices where we work on our own cases. We don't ship them off to other people. I mean, there are certain types of cases that are specialized, like a huge products case. Like, I've been getting calls on these Roundup cases.
Yeah. I've seen some television commercials on that.
Cases like that, there are firms around the United States that have specialized in handling Roundup cases. You're not going to find local firms here on the Treasure Coast or really even in Florida. Most of those are being referred out to national law firms that are looking at those types of cases. But other than that, we work on our cases here. We have 4 offices that are staffed: Fort Pierce, Port St. Lucie, Vero Beach, and Okeechobee. And we have, I think we have 10 attorneys now working with us. And
We do.
I'll let Taylor talk about our practice areas and the attorneys that we have that handle those practice areas.
Sure. So the part that we're deeply entrenched in is the personal injury side. So that's your car accidents, slip and falls, dog bites, really any type of injury case. I handle those. Steve does. My dad does. Donna DeMarchi, she's in our Port St. Lucie office, and Donna is very experienced attorney. She's also hugely involved in many different community events along the Treasure Coast. Donna was just recently, I believe, elected to the Port St. Lucie Bar Association as the president, and then I, on the same day, was elected as the St. Lucie County Bar president. So,
well, congratulations.
Thank you. That's a big deal for our firm, and we both have a lot of good plans to build both organizations over the next year. Donna's going to be the president for the next 2 years. The St. Lucie County Bar president only goes for a year, and then we elect a new president. But we're both very excited about that. Kieran Moylan is a attorney that works with us in the personal injury department in our Vero Beach office. So he's also very involved in different community events in Vero. And Ron Finero is also in our Vero office. He does our workers' comp. He's done workers' comp for almost 40 years, I think. He's a great attorney. And then Ian, Lloyd, and Louis Turco do Social Security disability. Mr. Turco does veterans disability as well. And Colin Lloyd and Justin Lefko do bankruptcy and mortgage foreclosure defense.
Interesting. Okay.
And you forgot to tell him about our new attorney,
And
Richard Lavery.
He does. He is our brand new attorney in the Social Security / Workers' Comp department, right?
Okay. Wow. The veterans thing, is that getting any better for our veterans? You know, you hear so much about the VA and how bad it is and how poorly they're treated. I just don't know.
Well, I don't know that it's getting any worse, but it's not significantly better. One of the complaints that we receive a lot is all the red tape and hurdles that you have to go through to get treatment. And I think the good thing is we've all recognized that there are many problems with the VA and the care that's provided to veterans. And I think nationally there's an effort to try to do a better job. But the system has so many issues that it will be, I think, a long process in getting that taken care of. Two of the biggest problems that I see locally, actually, we get people that are in an accident and many times try to treat through the VA. And just simple things like trying to get records out of the VA is difficult. And it seems like...
Is that because of the HIPAA laws? Or?
Well, it's just a lot of it's the organization and the way that it's set up. And the other problem with the VA, there seems to be such a turnover in medical staff at a lot of these VA facilities. They seem to attract people that work there for a period of time and then they move on to other places. So continuity of care at a lot of the facilities is a problem. You don't find people that just stay with that organization. So
I'm sure that's kind of a first job type situation.
Yeah, so it's a challenge at treating with the VA. And here, for the most part, if you want to go to the VA, you have to travel down to Riviera Beach to get treatment. But I think the good news is that I think we've made some strides in trying to make our care for veterans better. But I know in our firm, I don't do the veterans disability work, but Lou Turco and Ian Lloyd do it. And if you've got a claim for veterans disability, I guarantee you're better off getting some legal advice and pursuing that claim than trying to do it on your own, because the red tape and just all the issues that you face. If you're dealing with a disability, the last thing you need to be doing is trying to deal with the VA on your own. So you once again, I would strongly recommend that if you have some type of service, injury or disability and interested in a VA claim, I would recommend talking to either Lou or Ian or at least an attorney who's experienced in doing VA veterans disability claims.
Mm-hmm. We just have a few more minutes left. Taylor, where'd you go to law school?
I went to law school at Florida Coastal in Jacksonville, and then I graduated from there. I moved back to Fort Pierce and decided to get my LLM, which is a legal master's in trial advocacy from Stetson's Law School in St. Petersburg.
Okay. And Steve, where'd you go to school?
I actually went to Cumberland School of Law that's in Birmingham, Alabama, and I graduated in 1980, which is
centuries ago.
Well, it's a while. Hey, do we have time to talk about some upcoming shows?
Sure, you bet.
We've been trying to put together some radio show ideas. This was our first one. I hope folks are listening to it. Next week, we're talking about going on the road. Our firm is involved with the Red Cross, and we have Steve Weigel from Channel 5 stopping by our office building for lunch next Tuesday on his annual ride down the Treasure Coast to West Palm Beach.
One of the good guys. Yep.
Yes, and so we're thinking that we'll try to do a remote broadcast from our Fort Pierce office next Tuesday and talk about hurricane coverage and hurricane preparedness. I see we already have a storm.
Yes, I was going to say.
Yeah,
Didn't even wait for hurricane season.
And then we're going to do a show on boating safety.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, that's a big summertime activity. And as 4th of July approaches, we're going to talk about a show on 4th of July safety issues and how to properly celebrate the 4th of July without getting injured. And we have a show planned on how to make your home and business safer.
Ooh, yeah.
So
great ideas.
Yeah, because you can get hurt at home or get hurt at a business, and we'll talk about some of those things. So those are some of the things we have coming up. And actually next week, Donna and Taylor will be in charge of our show.
That sounds great. Well, Taylor, what other things are you involved in? I thought I saw something just last week. I know you and Donna seem to be everywhere.
We are, but no, I enjoy being a part of many different organizations in St. Lucie County and the Treasure Coast in general. But this coming year, I am the incoming board chair of the Coastal Heartland chapter of the Red Cross, and I am also a board member of Women United. So over the weekend, last Friday, we had the hangar party for our local Red Cross chapter, which is our big fundraising event of the year. So we did that, and then on Saturday, Donna and I, through Women United, packed 542 backpacks, I believe, with supplies for the homeless children of St. Lucie County. So it's such a big issue in our county right now. I think there are 1,800 homeless children, so it's a huge problem, and we're focusing on that this month and with our Women United group.
Boy, that's amazing. So tell us a little bit more about Women United. I don't think I've heard much about that.
It's a brand new organization. It's part of United Way, and most United Way chapters have a Women United chapter. So this is Women United of St. Lucie County United Way, and each month, actually bi-monthly, we take a problem in our community to raise awareness for it and do one community volunteering event for it to support it as well. So we typically have 1 month we'll have a speaker come in and do a lunch and learn, and you can learn about the different problems going on in our community. And then the next month we have a outreach volunteer fundraising event that goes back to what the speaker talked about. So every 2 months we do something new. So.
That's great. That's amazing. And Steve, hats off to you. Your entire organization is involved in so much community activities, I guess.
Well, we believe in investing in the community. That's kind of a core fundamental of our firm.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you, you guys are special, and we're glad to have you around WPSL. And I know you've been longtime supporters of our WPSL Christmas Kids, and of course I gave you the list for the Christmas Kids shows, which are already planned for November and December, and we thank you for your involvement. And hey, we'll see you again next week. Well, Steve, we won't see you. Taylor, we will see you and
Yes.
Donna, and I guess we'll be Fort Pierce office?
Yep.
Cool. Okay, we'll see you then.
You can get a hamburger and hot dog.
Whoa! Well, then I'll definitely be there. This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, WPSL.com, worldwide, webcaster to the world, on Alexa and Google Home.